It wasn't that long ago, probably about 10 years or so ago, that I really wanted to understand wine. And going back a lot further than that, when I was in college, I was getting my finance degree, and I looked at my future and I had this idea, this feeling that, you know, executive dinners were going to be in my future, and there were things that I was going to need to know. I was going to need to know how to golf. I was going to need to know how to order wine. I was going to need to know how to travel. And when I got to a position in my mid 20s where I was leading a division, an organ division within the consulting firm that I was working for, I was really out of my element. And when I was leaving college, I had bought myself a set of books, the ones that are like at Costco or something, and they come with like four in a nice little box set. And they don't really teach you anything that helps you when you want to learn about wine. So over the years, I would always pick up magazines and I would read things where I could. But when I started entertaining clients, what I recognized, and let me just say as an aside, I spent most of my adult life in Dallas, Texas, which is not where I grew up. I grew up in a small town in North Dakota. But I was in Dallas, Texas, and if you know anything about Texas and anything about Dallas specifically, you know that it's full of steakhouses. So typically, any big dinner, any big celebration was typically done at a steakhouse. So, first of all, here I was generally the only woman at the table most times. So I was with a lot of men who were ordering, big steaks, big red wines, all of those things. And so what I knew was the labels of the day for the red wines that everybody was drinking or was interested in. But my experience was that the wine absolutely destroyed my meal. Now, why is that? Well, I wasn't ordering big steaks. I was ordering the fish. I was ordering not necessarily salads, although that clearly wouldn't have worked either. But, scallops, Dover sole, really nice when I could find it. Anything that was remotely French or, high cuisine kinds of things were the things that I was always drawn to. And in most cases, those delicate sauces, those delicate fish, those delicate proteins were all pretty much destroyed by a big red tannic wine. And if you don't know what I mean by that, follow along because I've got lots of content that will explain that to you. But essentially, those big red wines that have that drying sensation that make you feel like you need to go brush your teeth after you've had a glass, those will overpower light dishes. So while my kids were growing up, I got into making cheese. I have always loved cheese. My favorite meals when I was a kid were grilled cheese, macaroni and cheese, ham and cheese. I mean, you kind of get it. So when I started looking into the science of cheese, I absolutely loved it. And being someone that came from the world of IT, I always love to see how patterns work. If you take music and mathematics, coding, and several other things in nature, what you'll notice is that there's a frequency, there is also kind of a cadence. So you have like, take music, for example. So music and software coding, very similar. You've got a part that starts out that basically sets the stage and has a unique format. Then it goes into the chorus, or in the case of software, it goes into the loop function. And then it comes back out and it does something unique. So in a song, that would be the verse and the chorus. And I noticed that in a lot of different things. And so I was drawn to cheese making. That was something where I really learned. I did it for about 10 years, and I had taken some wine fridges that I would buy off Craigslist or whatnot, and I converted them into wine caves in my laundry room. And I had, a couple of them stacked and was making, I started with mozzarella because that's pretty easy. You can do that if you've got a microwave and a pot, basically. So I started with mozzarella and then went on to things like brie and camembert and farmer's cheese and cheddar and some of the cheeses with ash on the outside. And I did get into, the waxing and, all the superficial stuff. But whether it was, cheese that required a little bit of penicillin, like a blue cheese or a brie, or something that was just more straight up rustic, like a cheddar, and again, those soft cheeses like mozzarella. Goat cheese is still my absolute favorite. And I was fortunate enough to have a next door neighbor who was raising goats at the time. So I was able to get fresh goat milk. That was just an absolute labor of love. So while I was doing that when my kids were more in like, grade school, middle school, as they got to be in high school and college, and my husband and I started kind of taking back a little bit of our own disposable income, I became very interested in the world of wine. And some of it's that, from a science perspective, it's very similar to cheese in that it's all about fermentation. But the bigger question is, still never solved the equation of how do you order wine for a table. And while I was no longer entertaining clients at that time, I did have a lot of friends, and I love to entertain. And in fact, every year our signature event was a Super Bowl party because I would invite 70, 80 people. And we started this when our kids were young, so everybody could always bring their kids, which, if you've ever had kids, that's a big draw because it's very difficult to find a babysitter. And it's really easy if you can just take your kids with you, but yet your kids kind of go away and you get to be an adult and the kids have a great time and you don't have to pay $100 to a babysitter. So it's kind of a win-win-win all the way around. But all that to say that at the Super Bowl party, you've got four quarters, you've got two teams. So I would have everything, in the theme of the team's colors. I would do themes based on the city. So there was a signature drink for each team. Generally, they, would represent the team's colors or something significant about that city. And the year that the Green Bay Packers played, I had a field day because I went crazy with my cheeses, as you would imagine. And so every quarter, there was two or three passable items that were brought out into the crowd. So there was a huge food table where people could kind of graze all night and do, the normal charcuteries and chips and wings and all the things that somebody would have at a Super Bowl party. But on top of that, I would bring out one and two bite kind of canapes or appetizer typey things on each quarter, which was great because it kind of kept people engaged. So they, some people watch the game, some people just want to socialize, some people are just kind of walking around meeting people doing their thing because there was a wide diverse group of people at these parties. I would always invite people that were work people, school people, new age people, all different sorts of people. And what that really developed in me is I wanted to go to the next level, and I wanted to start doing dinner parties. And my best friend at the time had been to catering school, and our styles were totally different. She was very gregarious, had a lot of ideas all the time. And I was also an idea person, but I was someone who wanted to sit back and think about every possibility, every angle, anticipate every, I don't know, every opportunity, every challenge, all of it. And by the time I was still thinking through things, she'd already finished what we started talking about. So it was a great match. We both kind of wanted to start a dinner party kind of a thing, but we didn't know any other people that were really as into food as we were. And one of both of our frustrations was that if we would try to put together a party with friends or even like the holidays with family, if we tried to do like a potluck kind of a thing, everybody else would show up with something that they picked up on the way from the grocery store. And we both like really valued homemade items. And so we were just like, okay, if we throw like a holiday cookie party, we want people to go all in and like make these incredible cookies so that when we trade with 12 people, we go home with like the most amazing plate, box, whatever of cookies that anybody's ever seen. And if we're going to do a big Thanksgiving dinner, we don't want someone to show up with like cookies from the grocery store. We want them to together a tart or some homemade cookies or I don't know, whatever.